Hi everyone, it's book time again. So this month, usually once a month we do these. On Lily Reads, we are looking at Mythos by Stephen Fry. Now, this is kind of a book that I bought on a spare of a moment. It was like, I have nothing to read. What's on Amazon on sale? What are the sort of flash deals on? And I saw this book. Now, it is quite a me kind of book in that it's about folklore and legend and fantasy and, you know, theology. They're all things that I love to read about. But the Greek myths is never something that I've looked at in huge detail. Largely because when I've looked at it in the past, it's really complicated. I mean, to be fair, a lot of ancient mythologies and things like that are really complicated. I know when I started studying and looking at the Mabinogion, I had to listen to it on audiobook like 6 times before I really kind of got into my head the relationships between all of the different characters and gods and goddesses. In the Greek mythology is very much like that. It can be very, very confusing. There is a lot of different names and a lot of characters introduced very quickly, and it can be hard to keep up and remember who's who. One of the things that I loved about this book is you get little sort of cheat sheets. And they're not cheat sheets, but in the front of the book, first of all, you get these maps. So you can see where everything is happening. And it kind of gives you a layout of what they believed to, you know, what the ancient world looked like back then with all of the names. So when it mentions places, you actually see where they are. The other thing it gives you is these sort of family tree pages. Now this is really helpful because they're quite complicated. As I said, you get lots of names, lots of characters being introduced really quickly, and it's hard to see where they all are and who they all are and keep track of that. So having that there is really helpful. Now, one thing I would say about this book is that it is very, very much in Stephen Fry's voice. You kind of hear his voice as you're reading it. It's very much written in his style. It is very obviously Stephen Fry when you're reading it. And that's a good thing because, again, you know, as I said before, when we look at sort of theological books, when we look at anything sort of related to older myth and legend, they can be a little bit dusty and a little bit hard to read. Whereas this being in Stephen Fry's voice makes it massively easy to relate to an otherwise quite complicated you know, pantheon really. And the other thing is that he makes the characters a little bit more relatable by going into this kind of more modern than they have been told and previously voice with it. It's easier to kind of remember the characteristics of the different gods within the book. Gods, demigods, titans. There's a whole list within the book, rather than just trying to remember what they're actually the god and goddess of, you know. And it's massively interesting. The other good thing about this book, apart from the hilarious footnotes, which I do like, Stephen Fry's really good at doing interesting footnotes. That's something that's really cool. The other thing I really like is that I do like kind of short story layout, especially in print books. Like when I'm reading on my Kindle or audiobooks, I do a lot of audiobooks, they tend to be binge reading sessions. Whereas if I'm reading an actual in print book, I like it to be something I can pick up and put down quite easily. And the fact that this is, you know, all of the different sections of the book are broken into the little individual stories that are a few pages long. It kind of has that short story feel to it, even though it is part of a much longer story. So that's really great as well. Yeah, it is really, really well done. It's not an area I'd looked at massively. And it makes it really really accessible actually, because the stories in it are brilliant. You know, they're timeless in terms of fantasy and just entertaining sort of stories. But in their original sort of translated formats, they're not kind of very reader friendly or entertaining, if you like. It's quite hard to make them an easy read, but this really does, and it's really interesting. It kind of opened up the Greek myths and legends to me, and also, you know, it does hark back to the history of it. You know, it's got all of these illustrated pages in with pictures of artwork depicting the gods and the heroes that's talking about, which are really nice too. So yeah, it's a great book. I would, if like me, you have any interest in kind of theology and myth and legend, and have felt, you know, in the past a little bit intimidated by diving into the Greek myths and legend, then this is a brilliant way to start. I'm not sure what kind of scholars of these legends and stories would make of this, because I'm coming into it as someone, although who has an interest in the general area, doesn't know much. But certainly for me, it's provided a great way into looking at the Greek myths and legends, and it's something that I feel I have read not only to learn something, but that I've genuinely enjoyed reading for the stories as well. See you next time.